Hi there. I'm Editor Chan, here to help you get familiar with the Pose Maker. The Pose Maker lets you do all sorts of cool stuff like my waving animation here. It's a little more exciting than a static pose, don't you think? In this video we're just going to go over basics of working with poses. We'll get to making animations later. So, a pose is basically just a group of images stacked on top of each other and moved around. Right here I've got two images, or sprites as they're known in Pose Maker land. Here's the sprite for me, and another sprite that's just my arm. Under each sprite is a list of parameters that are being animated in the pose. You can toggle these if your list is getting too big. You can also hide individual sprites if they get in the way of what you're working on. Eep! Where did my arm go? Anyway, this area is known as the timeline. It shows how everything is being moved around. It gives an at-a-glance summary of how everything in the pose fits together. Right now my arm's rotation is moving. This little music repeat sign here means that the rotation plays over and over. See this bar moving across the rotation repeatedly? None of the other parameters have a bar because nothing else is moving at the moment. If I stop the animation, you can jump around the timeline to jump to that point in time. Notice my arm jumps around as I drag the time marker around. These little diamonds are known as keyframes. When you animate something, you don't have to position each frame one by one. At 60 frames per second, that would take forever. Instead you pick a few important frames, or keyframes, get it? And the system will smoothly fill in all the frames between the keyframes. This animation uses 5 keyframes. Everything in between them is magically filled in. If I select a frame and rotate my arm around, then the rest of the animation adjusts to fit that new rotation. I think I just broke my arm. Clicking the timeline, you can navigate around with these tools up here. You can move forward or backward through your keyframes, jump to the beginning or end of the animation, or zoom in and out. You can also zoom by holding down Ctrl and scrolling the mouse wheel. Keyframes can be dragged around to speed up or slow down the animation. Let's zoom out a bit here and lengthen the time between keys. Now my wave is twice as slow. You can also copy and paste frames. Let's fix my arm by selecting and deleting the frame we changed a moment ago. Then let's select another frame, copy it, jump back in the timeline to the position we just deleted and paste it in. Ta-da! My wave is fixed. When you have a sprite selected, you'll see a selection with some handles on it in the preview. You can use these to move the sprite around. Stretch it out. Rotate it. If you hold down Shift and drag, you can skew it. This little dot is known as the pivot point. It's the point around which the sprite will scale and rotate. You can also click on other sprites to start editing them. You can also type values in directly down here, or turn things transparent. This region is called the property table, and will update based on whatever you've selected. If I click a keyframe, it shows the values in that key. If I click a sprite, I can adjust sprite-wide properties that are not animated. For instance, I can change the sprite's name that appears up here in the timeline. Looking back at the timeline now, a whole bunch of diamonds have appeared while we were fooling around. This is because keyframes are automatically generated at the current point in time when you move things in the preview. Let's delete all of these by holding Ctrl and selecting multiple of them, and then pressing delete. After putting the pivot point back where it was, things are back to normal with just rotation left. Oops, we messed that up again, didn't we? So let's copy this frame again and paste it back here to get things back to how they used to be. I used Ctrl-Z to copy and Ctrl-V to paste, instead of using the right-click menu this time. So like I was saying, if you jump to a point in time and change things, a keyframe will be created. Let's move out here a bit and drag me away. Look, keys have been created for me now. But how am I supposed to edit myself now that I'm off screen? I'll hold down the right mouse button and drag to pan the camera around. There I am. You can also zoom out or in with these buttons, or like the timeline, Hold down Control and use the mouse wheel. These boundaries here indicate the top and bottom of the screen in the game, and this line is what the pose is centered on in game. This button recenters the camera to its initial state. Of course, now I'm missing again, so let's pan back over. Okay, you found me. Time to disappear. Let's reset the camera, jump back to the start of the pose, and play. Here I go. See you next time.